Your dog is out in the yard or on a walk, and he stops, lowers his head, and starts eating grass like he's a cow who's had a change of career. And your first thought is probably the same as every other dog owner's first thought. Is he sick? Is something wrong with his stomach? Is this normal? The answer is more interesting than you might expect, because the "dogs eat grass because they're sick" explanation that has been passed around for decades turns out to be much more complicated than that, and in most cases, almost entirely wrong. I'm a veterinary nutritionist, and grass-eating behavior in dogs is something I've spent real time looking at because it intersects nutrition, behavior, and instinct in a fascinating way. Let me walk you through what the evidence actually shows. The most common assumption is that dogs eat grass to induce vomiting when they have an upset stomach. The idea is that the dog feels nauseous, seeks out grass as a self-treatment, and the grass makes him vomit, providing relief. This is a clean, intuitive explanation, and it's been repeated so many times that most people accept it as established fact. But when researchers actually studied this behavior, the numbers told a different story. A study published in the journal Applied Animal Behavior Science surveyed over 3,000 dog owners about their dogs' grass-eating habits. The results were striking. Fewer than 25% of dogs who regularly ate grass were observed to vomit afterward. And when owners were asked whether their dog seemed sick before eating grass, fewer than 10% reported that the dog appeared ill. So the overwhelming majority of grass-eating episodes happen in dogs who do not appear sick beforehand and who do not vomit afterward. The eating grass to vomit because sick explanation, while it may apply in some cases, is clearly not the primary driver of this behavior. So what is actually going on? The most credible explanation from an evolutionary standpoint is that grass eating is an inherited behavior from the dog's wild ancestors, and it serves a purpose related to gut parasite management. Wild canids, wolves, coyotes, foxes, all eat grass and plant material regularly, and when researchers analyzed the stomach contents and scat of wild wolves, they found plant material in a significant percentage of samples. One leading hypothesis is that roughage consumption, including grass, helps trigger the passage of intestinal worms and parasites through mechanical means. The indigestible fibers wrap around the parasites and carry them through. In wild canids who had no access to dewormers, behavioral strategies for managing parasite loads would have significant survival value and would be maintained by natural selection. Does this mean your dog is trying to deworm himself? Probably not consciously, and probably not because he has a significant worm burden if he's on regular preventative care. But the behavioral impulse is still there, encoded in the dog's behavioral repertoire by evolutionary history, even when the original ecological pressure has been removed. This is not unusual. Many domesticated behaviors persist long after the need that generated them is gone. The nutritional angle is also worth considering. Grass contains fiber, chlorophyll, and trace micronutrients. Some researchers have proposed that dogs seek out grass when their diet is deficient in fiber or certain nutrients, and the behavior represents a form of nutritional self-regulation. There's some support for this. A case report in the Journal of Veterinary Medicine described a miniature poodle who had been eating grass and vomiting for 7 years and stopped the behavior almost entirely within 3 days of being switched to a high-fiber diet. While a single case doesn't establish causation, it suggests the fiber hypothesis has merit. If your dog is a frequent grass eater, it's worth asking whether his diet is providing adequate fiber and whether a dietary adjustment might reduce the behavior. The simplest explanation of all, one that researchers are increasingly crediting more than the illness hypothesis, is that dogs eat grass because they like it. The taste, the texture, the sensory novelty. Young grass, particularly in spring, has a high sugar content, and many dogs preferentially seek out new growth over older, tougher grass. If you watch your dog eating grass with any regularity, you'll often notice that he seems deliberately selective, bypassing certain patches, seeking out specific areas, showing what looks like genuine enjoyment rather than urgent, self-medicating behavior. Boredom and opportunity may also play a role. A dog left in a yard with nothing to do and grass available may eat it simply because it's there and it's something to do. Is grass eating harmful? In most cases, no. Plain grass from a yard that has not been treated with pesticides, herbicides, or fertilizers is not toxic to dogs. The main risk is from chemical treatment of the lawn, and this is a genuine concern. Many common lawn treatments are toxic to dogs, and you should never allow your dog to eat grass from a lawn that has been recently treated or from an unfamiliar lawn where you don't know the treatment history. The other risk, lower but real, is intestinal obstruction from large amounts of fibrous plant material, though this is uncommon in dogs who eat moderate amounts. There are some grass-eating situations that warrant attention. A dog who is eating grass urgently and frantically, who seems restless, whose abdomen appears distended, who is trying to vomit repeatedly without bringing anything up. This is not casual grass snacking. This pattern, particularly the unproductive retching combined with a distended abdomen, is a possible sign of gastric dilatation volvulus, which is a life-threatening emergency in dogs, particularly deep-chested large breeds. Do not wait if you see this combination of signs. Get to an emergency veterinary clinic immediately. A dog who has recently started eating grass much more than usual, who is losing weight, who has other digestive symptoms, or who seems generally unwell alongside the grass eating, that change in pattern warrants a veterinary evaluation to rule out underlying gastrointestinal disease. For the average dog who occasionally grazes in the yard and seems perfectly fine afterward, no intervention is needed. If the behavior is frequent and you want to reduce it, make sure the diet is providing adequate fiber. Increase physical exercise and mental stimulation to reduce boredom-driven behaviors, and offer appropriate chew items and enrichment to give the dog other outlets for oral engagement. Some dogs respond well to having access to a small pot of indoor grass or wheatgrass, available at many pet stores, which gives them a safe, chemical-free option and satisfies whatever the impulse is without the risks of outdoor grass. The honest takeaway is this. Your dog eating grass is almost certainly not a crisis, and it's almost certainly not even an indication that he feels sick. It's a normal canine behavior with deep evolutionary roots, a possible connection to fiber and nutritional needs, and in many cases simply a reflection of the fact that dogs are curious, sensory creatures who interact with their environment through their mouths. Watch the context, manage the lawn chemical situation, and pay attention if the pattern changes dramatically. Leave a comment and tell me how often your dog eats grass and whether he tends to vomit afterward. I'm genuinely curious about what patterns you've observed. And subscribe now. We're starting the parrot series next week with Why Parrots Bite. And if you have a bird or know someone who does, that video is going to be essential. See you there.